Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Pam Nixon. I am the co-chair of the Indiana ACAC Secondary School Issues Committee, and we, cannot get together at events the way we typically do. So we thought maybe a webinar series might help just communicate some information. We're trying to make sure different sides of the desk and then different organizations within our state are communicating and just working together to collaborate on different initiatives. We're all trying to make a difference and help students and increase equity and inclusion and access. So if you ever have an idea for a webinar series, or there's something you'd like to learn more about, or you know someone who would be a great speaker, definitely contact me. My information is on the last slide, and I can communicate that out. Also, if you're interested in being on the Secondary School Issues Committee, we'd love to have you. We're also looking for new co-chairs going forward in coming years. So if it's something that interests you or you'd like to get more involved in Indiana ACAC, I would be happy to help you on that. So we'll go ahead and get started with today's topic, which is college transfer student admission information. I have two awesome speakers here today, Ferdinand Barrero from Ivy Tech Bloomington and Emily Robison from Butler University. They are the experts, so I'm going to kind of step aside and let them go through all of their information. We will be using the chat feature if you have any questions.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for logging in today. As you are aware, Ivy Tech Community College, many students come to us for a variety of different reasons. And as you can see, I'm not going to read every little bullet point on here, but one of the main reasons is it's local, it's affordable. We have a variety of versions of method of instruction, such as face-to-face. With COVID-19 hitting, we have a lot more Zoom classes, i.e. virtual. We always have our hybrid and online courses. In addition to that, we have 16-week options, and we have more an accelerated 8-week options to allow students to get through these classes a little bit faster. More benefits are our classroom sizes. We don't have large lecture halls on campus, and especially with COVID-19 hitting, there's a lot more social distancing in our classrooms, resulting in fewer students in the class, and more students can get more of that one-on-one individual attention. As you can see here, there's a variety of different programs that we offer for a seamless transfer process. Two of them are transfer as a sophomore, which is many of you may have heard of, the statewide transfer Gen Ed Core, which is a 30 credit hour block. And once students complete all these basic Gen Eds and they apply towards and they get accepted at a 4-year institution, that receiving institution cannot pick apart those credits, even though that class may not have transferred in one for one. Think of it as a briefcase of 30 credits that they can take from Ivy Tech to a 4-year school. That's one program. And another program, well, we have multiple programs, but another program is if you want to earn your associate's degree with us, we have a program called Transfer as a Junior. And long story short, it's called TSAP, Transfer Single Articulation Pathway. Many years ago, long story short for that, students can earn their 2-year degree with us. And once they've been accepted to a state school in Indiana, then all 60 credits will transfer over so they can continue on with their 3rd and 4th years there.
And I'll jump in here talking about the transfer basics. Good morning, everybody. Emily from Butler. So the thing that students and you as high school counselors may want to keep in mind as you're having conversations with students is 4-year schools, there is typically a difference in the first year application and admission and scholarship process, different from the transfer application admission scholarship process. So if a student applies as a first-year student, that high school GPA is going to be a big factor in admission and scholarship. As a transfer student, it's the college GPA that's really going to impact their admissibility and their likelihood for scholarships there. The other thing to keep in mind for transfer students is the grades that they need to receive in order for credits to transfer. If a student goes to Ivy Tech, for instance, and then wants to transfer to Butler, we require that the student earns a C or better at Ivy Tech for us to accept those transfer credits. Ivy Tech doesn't do pluses and minuses. At other schools, we would accept a C minus or better as transfer credit. But it's important for the student to know that not all credits are going to transfer automatically. Many times there is going to be that grade requirement that they need to meet for transfer credit. And backing up just a little bit, what's the definition of a transfer student? It actually differs from four-year school to four-year school, so that's another thing that students need to investigate. At Butler, we call somebody a transfer student if they've earned 12 credit hours or more at a college or university after high school graduation. So full credit doesn't make you a transfer student at Butler. At other four-year schools, you may not be classified as a transfer student until you earn 24 credit hours. I can think of one school, four-year school off the top of my head, that calls somebody a transfer student even if they only earn 1 credit after high school graduation. So just know that there are differences in how transfer students are defined at four-year schools, and that that's something that the student will want to investigate so they know how to apply, whether as a first-year student or a transfer student. The other thing for students to keep in mind is, are there specific requirements based on the program, the degree program that they're interested in? There may be an overall transfer policy in terms of here's the GPA we're looking for, here are the grades we're looking for on those specific classes, but there may be a higher GPA threshold or specific prerequisite courses that a student has to have if they're applying to a particular degree program at that four-year school. Next slide.
Well, things to consider when selecting a school. As you can see, that right there is our current cost of attendance. It's one of the lowest tuitions in the state. We want to be transparent with the costs and that students can, the cost for their tuition. And there's just estimated book fees and typical room and board. Ivy Tech, that we don't have dorms. However, students who do commute or who do come from out of Bloomington, they come to Bloomington to live in an apartment. So this is just an average room and board cost and transportation costs along with some expenses.
And the other thing that students might want to investigate when they're selecting a school is, how are those transfer credits accepted? As Ferdinand said, with the programs, the TSAP with public schools, four-year schools, that's very transparent right from the beginning. Those students know exactly how those Ivy Tech credits are going to be applied to their public school degree. Butler being a private school, we don't have that same agreement, but we accept those transfer credits. So what we've done is post on our website our transfer credit equivalencies for Ivy Tech that says, here are the courses that you can complete at Ivy Tech. In the left-hand column, the right-hand column shows exactly which Butler courses we would give you credit for. And so we've got that broken down by core classes as well as some of the specific majors or the colleges at Butler, College of Communication, College of Education, that sort of thing. Again, the other term you might hear is articulation agreement, typically with state schools, but I think there are a few private schools that will have an articulation agreement with Ivy Tech or another two-year school that it's basically a contract that says, here are how these courses at this 2-year school are going to be accepted at our 4-year school with these parameters. But the course equivalencies that Butler show, it's essentially the same thing. It's just kind of a linguistics thing. But course equivalencies and articulation agreements are two terms that those prospective transfer students should understand when they're looking at different 4-year schools. Next slide. And so we'll talk about the application process as a transfer student. And just for this purpose, I'm going to talk specifically about a student transferring from Ivy Tech to Butler, but just know any 2-year school to 4-year school, it's going to be similar, or there are going to be similarities there. First thing to look for, are there application fees? At Butler, the answer is no. When you submit the transfer application online, there's no application fee, but that may be different at other 4-year schools, so students will want to investigate that. Completing the application by the recommended date or that deadline, there are going to be application deadlines as a transfer student, but typically those dates are going to be different than they are for first-year students. One thing I always try and mention too is submitting the application is not the same thing as completing the application. So the student can submit the application online, but there are other materials we're going to need. So going to that next bubble there, the official college transcript. And Butler, as is the case with most 4-year schools, are going to require that the transcript be sent to us from the issuing school. So if a student sends us a transcript, we wouldn't consider that official. It needs to come to us from the 4-year school, either the registrar's office or Parchment or National Student Clearinghouse, one of those services, but not forwarded by the student for it to be considered official. At Butler, we do not require the final high school transcript if the student has 20 credit hours or more college credits earned after high school graduation. We're going to be able to make our transfer decision based on their college work, their college transcripts. But we do require the final high school transcript as part of the enrollment process. Again, other 4-year schools might require that high school transcript as part of the application. So the student will just need to investigate that. And then finally, I'll let Ferdinand jump back in and we'll talk about the difference between open admission and selective admission.
Great. So at Ivy Tech, the application fee, there is no application fee for our admissions application. There is no set deadline dates. Ideally, it'd be ideal if students can apply in advance, weeks, months in advance, just to get them prepared and get all their ducks in a row as they progress through that admissions process. So there's no necessary admissions deadline. But as far as transcripts go, we do need to identify where students are with their reading, writing, and math. We can definitely waive them into college level courses based on their high school GPA of 2.6 or higher. However, ideally, if a student is pursuing a degree in the STEM track, they will need to take our knowledge assessment, which identifies them in where they can start at, because the last thing we want to do is put a student in the class that may be too easy or just too difficult, and either the high school GPA, SATs, PSATs, if they can bring us those scores and there's we can see if they met certain benchmarks, then we can waive the assessment. Again, the knowledge assessment is a free test that they can take at their leisure, which will identify where they are in those areas. And open admissions, you can, there's not a rigorous process. If you meet the assessment scores, we can go ahead and jump you into some basic gen eds and move on from there.
And so the selective admission just means that we typically at 4-year schools, there is going to be a minimum GPA that we're looking for transfer admission. Again, it's going to vary from four-year school to four-year school. It may even vary within a four-year school for a particular program if it's a more competitive program, for instance. But I will tell you too that something that's important to me as the transfer counselor reading transfer applications, I'm going to look at that total college cumulative GPA, and I'm going to look at the grades and grade trends. Grade trend is really important to me when I see that a student, if they've done 4 semesters, for instance, at Ivy Tech, and each semester their GPA is steady or climbing, that's a good sign for me as a transfer counselor to say, okay, they're on track to be successful at Butler as a transfer student. If I see in the 4 semesters at Ivy Tech or another school that each semester that GPA is dropping, if their grades are not steady or improving but declining, that could be a red flag that says something's going on. They're not ready academically to come to Butler as a transfer student. So if I see a grade below C- in the student's most recent semester, I may ask them to complete some additional coursework and show an uptick in those grades, just to let us know and for their knowledge as well, that they're going to be more likely to be successful at Butler if they're coming in with steady or climbing grades. That shows us that they're prepared. And again, with selective admission, just to say it's the GPA, it's the grades, it's the grade trends. And again, there may be specific prerequisites that a 4-year school or a particular program will be looking for as a transfer student when they apply. Next slide.
So as planning ahead, we have many students that come to us and their goal isn't necessarily to earn a degree with us, but they want to take some classes that transfer to, they want to take gen ed classes to transfer them to another 4-year school. And oftentimes they come in unprepared. So ideally, if a student can come in prepared and identify what their end goal is as far as a bachelor's, I often say, let's work backwards. Let's figure out what classes you are needing that XYZ school needs, and then let's identify what classes, what equivalent courses those are here, so that they can kind of mirror that path from here to there. So it's always important for students who are interested in transferring out, and if they don't plan on earning any of our credentials, such as again, the TGEC, the Statewide Gen Ed Core Competency, or the TSAP degree, it's always best that they identify what they need. So that way they can help them out and save a lot of money.
Right. The other thing I was going to mention too about the considering the structure of the coursework, we've touched on it, of course, a bit with are there particular prerequisites that 4-year school is going to ask of the transfer applicant? Are they looking for core classes that will be applied to the 4-year school's core curriculum? One thing, if I haven't made it crystal clear, it is the 4-year school that determines how transfer credits are accepted. So Ivy Tech has the courses that they teach and the TSAP, et cetera, and articulation agreements, but all of that has to be agreed upon by the 4-year school to say, this is what we are looking for. This is how we're going to count it toward the bachelor's degree, either as toward the core curriculum, toward a specific major, or we'll count it as elective credit that's required as part of a bachelor's degree program. But again, it's important for the student to know, has the 4-year school approved this coursework as transferable and transferring in the way that I want it to transfer to that 4-year school? It's good to plan ahead and ask those questions for 4 years.
So here's some resources for you all. If you go to the website ivytech.edu/transfer, there's a lot of information on that page. It talks about the TGEC, talks about the TSAP. This little box here, exploring transferring credits, That's a little sidebar on that website. And we have an arrow there pointing to its transfer as a junior FAQs. That's really important for students to review and for students to familiarize themselves with, because there's a lot of intricate details about what how students should progress through that program. Also, the link right below that is the Transfer Evaluation System, that's short for TES, TESS. If you were to click on that specific link, that will show you what classes that are taken at Ivy Tech and how they transfer to a specific school. There are hundreds of different schools there. A lot of schools in Indiana have a lot more, accept our credits a lot more than other schools. So it's very important to take a look at that. And that's what one of the things that we would look at is working backwards. We would look at that test website. It's also a tool that our registrar's office uses to see what class they've taken at another school and how that transfers back to Ivy Tech. So that could save a lot of students time, money, effort. Yes, you do have to invest some time in going through finding that needle in the haystack, but it's well worth it to identify which courses they should consider taking and how it transfers from Ivy Tech to that school. So in addition to this, on our website, we have a banner. If you go to ivytech.edu, there's a banner across the top, and it's a very fluid statement. It can change based on the spread of COVID-19, but that right there is a very important link that tells us, our students how we are treating the spread of the virus, and a lot of other things on there.
Right, and the same for Butler. We've got information on our website about COVID-19. One way that it specifically impacted transfer students is for so many schools in the spring when the outbreak began, and so many schools switched to online coursework, sent students home if they were living on campus somewhere. Many of those schools changed their grading structures and went either giving students the option to switch their coursework from letter grades to pass-fail for the spring semester, or some four-year schools dictated that all of the coursework for all students was going to be switched to pass-fail instead of letter grades, just to sort of take some of that pressure off. Typically at Butler, our policy has been with transfer credits. As I mentioned, we're looking for grades of C- or better. So we expect to see letter grades on those college transcripts when a transfer student applies. But we have made the exception for spring of 2020 and summer of 2020. We will accept credit for courses that were taken pass-fail, if they pass, of course. So that's an exception to the rule that's been dictated by COVID. And as Ferdinand said as well, we've changed the way that we are delivering coursework this fall. We do have students in the classroom on campus with proper social distancing. We've expanded the number of classrooms we have on campus just to get those numbers even lower and be able to have students in the classroom with their professors in a safe manner, but also giving students the option to take courses online if they're just not comfortable being in the classroom. And then there are courses as well that is sort of that hybrid mix as well. We also, as many schools did, altered our calendar for the fall, and we've just gotten word that the calendar has been adjusted for spring as well, without kind of eliminating fall break and spring break to keep students on campus and kind of lower the risk of the spread of the virus that way. So any changes like that, of course, we're continuing to update. So I would assume most four-year schools, there's going to be a website that will give students and counselors updated information about what they're doing and how things have been impacted by COVID-19.
And in addition to COVID-19, students, if they come to campus and they are required to wear masks, If they do not have a mask, we will provide one for them. And so there's that. And so our hallways are kind of dead right now due to many students have opted to take a lot of these classes via Zoom. But those who did decide to come to campus, they are, again, they are asked to spread apart in the classroom. There's so few students in the classroom, but those are some of the measures that we have taken here on campus.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Fernando. Yes, we are required, everyone, students, faculty, and staff, we're all masked when we are on campus. We are, for us in admission, we're actually now broken into 4 teams. So I'm working from home today. You may be able to see I'm in my living room today, but I'm on campus every 4th day in the Office of Admission. So we're reducing the number of people that are physically on campus. And when we are there, we are wearing masks. The other thing that is required is a health screening on the app on our phone. We take our own temperature and log that in, and we answer questions about any possible exposure. We have to pass that health screening. Same is true for students, and we've also added that health screening as a requirement for our visitors. If a student wants to come to campus to meet with me, take a campus tour, we are moving forward with those on-campus visits, but we're restricting the numbers and we're requiring visitors to go through that health screening as well to do our best to keep everybody safe.
So there you have our contact information. If you have any questions, now is a great time to ask them. If time is available, we can answer them right now. But there's some information on how to reach us.
Right, you can always reach out by phone or email. If questions come up later today or next week or next month, please feel free to reach out. We've got the Butler Transfer Admission webpage there. And again, if students are investigating various four-year schools, they should be able to search each four-year school's website with transfer admission and get transfer specific information that way.
We definitely wanted to offer something about transfer admission just because so many students are changing maybe from the traditional path they would have taken based on income changes this year or changes with the processes on different four-year campuses, and wanted to be keeping more options open for other paths toward a bachelor's degree. So I'm so thankful to Ferdinand and Emily for joining us today. Like I said, we're going to be doing a different webinar every month for Indiana ACAC for the Secondary School Issues Committee. If you have things that you want to hear about, or you want to be a speaker, or you've had this amazing dynamic person visit your school that you would like me to reach out to offer that, I can definitely do that. And like I said at the beginning, if you're interested in getting more involved in Indiana ACAC, I would love to talk with you. Some high school counselors think, oh, this is just for on the college side, and it's really not. It's been an amazing way for me to connect with people on the high school side as well, or to keep those relationships very communicative with the college side. So thank you, Ferdinand and Emily. If no one has any questions now, again, you can reach out to all of us later to let us know how we can help. Thank you so much for joining us today.